When we're looking at traditional IT deliverables, then we'll see that they rarely meet the business requirements. And there are many reasons for this. Typically and traditionally in IT, we know that long-term projects, larger development projects, take time. They take 9, 12, 18 months. They consist of specification requirements. They consist of development, of testing, UATs, everything. And that makes the projects take quite a long time. The problem is, in today's environment, that the specifications, the requirements from the business units are changing faster than the IT department can deliver the projects. So, almost projects, they are celebrated with a long list of change requests once they're finally launched. And of course, that is unsustainable because IT, they're doing the very best that they can, and the business, they are trying to keep up running their business and their business unit. So whenever the projects and the ends doesn't meet upon deliverable, business is unhappy and IT is unhappy. I think before we move on, it's worth taking a step back and understanding, why is this happening? Why is it that the projects take a longer time, and why is it that we'll see this mismatch between what the business wants and what the IT is delivering? Well, there are quite a few reasons for this. First of all is the technical debt in the existing systems that the companies have. The technical debt is something that happens when you have a legacy system, a core system that takes time to develop on. The business, they're coming and saying, we need the requirements and we need it now. And in order for IT to accommodate this to the business, they cut corners. They're doing this to help and in best intentions. But this corner cutting also creates problems in the core systems, simply because they have to remember where they've cut corners. So next time they have to do a change into the legacy systems. They also have to, or we also have to do an impact analysis, understanding where did we cut the corners the last time and how does that impact the new development? And that makes things take time. Also, in many cases, we're working on old or older legacy systems. And when people are changing their jobs gradually, organizations are losing the capabilities of working with these legacy systems, or there are very few people who know how to work on them, which creates bottlenecks in the development cycles of these legacy systems. We also face another thing on the resource area, because no company have unlimited IT development resources. And if you remember what I said before, once an IT project is ready, because it takes time, there's always already a bunch of change requests waiting to be done to this new deliverable. And that means the resources in the IT department will be stretched and pressed. So whenever business needs new products and new projects done, you still have a huge backlog of change requests that have to be done. So you're struggling with the resources, which in turn makes the projects take even longer. This also means that when you are estimating the scope of a project, let's say it's 6, 12, 9 months, the business says this is not good enough, and IT, they try again to do their best to accommodate the business needs. So they set unrealistic deadlines. And these unrealistic deadlines results in more errors, more time for error fixing. And at the end of the day, the project ends up taking as long as the IT estimated in the beginning. Again, pushing deadlines, taking longer. Because of these issues, because IT is delivering one thing and the business are expecting something else, and the business always want it done tomorrow, and IT, because of what we just discussed, are having troubles accommodating this. That also creates an us versus them sense in the organization, because IT is being frustrated by the requirements from the business, and business is being frustrated with the IT not delivering. So in order to keep a work environment isolated, we build this us versus them. We have long specification requirements gathering sessions to make sure that this is exactly what business needs, so the IT, they can create exactly that. And they do this to protect themselves, to make sure that we did exactly as business said, so it's not our fault, and business, they cannot come back and say something. But this takes a lot of time in the development phase. We also see when business comes, and this is probably something you've all experienced, if the business comes with, why don't we just use this product? It's already ready. Well, there's a lot of reasons for not being able to use this product. Maybe because it takes time to integrate into the legacy system, but there's also a personal issue, I have to say. IT, seeing the world going as fast as it is, also fear the lack of control. If business all of a sudden start deploying their own systems all over the place, IT doesn't have that control of what's going on in the organization. And naturally, IT will push back on these areas and say, no, it's not possible, and you can only use what we're telling you to use. The last reason for development projects taking a long time is also part the organizational. If you need to acquire the resources from the outside, if you need to engage with external partners, there will be long procurement processes. You may have to ask different vendors for a price for RFP, and it takes time, again, delaying the whole project. Many organizations, they are fighting for talent, so you don't have necessarily the right talent to do the developments, which again delays the development cycle. So there are many reasons for IT projects taking a long time, not just because the developers, they have to develop it. There are many reasons around it also that is very important to bear in mind when you're looking at, okay, how do we move on? Because this is not a sustainable situation. We have to find a way of moving on. We can't just sit back and accept that the projects, they take so long. We have to find a way where the projects, the time it takes to deliver a product is better aligned with the changes in the business requirements and the business needs. I think we all can agree that now more than ever, the world is changing really fast, so we cannot have these long-term projects anymore. But we have to find a way of doing it, looking at all the challenges that most organizations they have. A good starting point is saying quite directly, we do not engage in projects longer than 3 months. I know this sounds very, very ambitious. It is possible, but it also requires a shift in the way that you approach the projects. Because if whatever project you define takes longer than 3 months, then you have to redefine it. So you have to rescope the project. This is one step of making things go much smoother. When you do this, also make sure that the projects that you are defining are very, very clear in scope and deliverables. You need to make sure that when this project is delivered, you can actually track the benefits immediately. This will open up for the next project. It will open up for maybe even more resources because your management will be able to see that these shorter term projects are delivering value almost immediately. So you will be able to maybe run more of these projects in parallel. Another thing, when you do this, you make sure that there is only one responsible per project. I forgot to mention, but when you're looking at some of the issues in the organization, you also have the issue of many responsible people. Then you have one responsible for the requirements, one responsible for the project management, one responsible for the development. And in turn, if you don't have one responsible person for all of it, people will think that they've done their job and then say, I did my part, so it's another person's problem. You cannot have this when you're looking at fast deliverables and development cycles. You need to make sure that there is one person owning the project end to end. A way of sidetracking this is to make the changes part of the daily task. When you are having these shorter term projects, then they will become more business as usual part of this is how we work. We are working with the short projects. You make sure that your projects that you're working on, since they're short, has to be very close to the business. Business has to be involved to a much greater extent than in many cases they are today. Because if you put the development closer to the business, you are closer to the requirements. Also, I suggest that you build a buffer around your legacy systems, that you build a layer between your long-term development legacy systems and the fast track and the fast development cycles that you need. Let me just show you what I mean here, because I've been working for many years with the 2-speed IT model, or 3-speed, or whatever you want to call it. It is a term that was coined by, I think, BCG or Gartner some years ago, 10, 12 years ago. And the concept is that you accept that you have a legacy system that does take time to work on. This is perfectly okay. Your legacy systems are the systems of record. This is where you have your transactional and your financial data. You shouldn't be changing these systems quite oftenly. But unfortunately, the fact is today that people are changing the systems frequently because the core system, the legacy systems, have the functionality, the business processes, the workflows inbuilt. This is where you have to build a buffer, a layer, a connection layer, the API. So you, on top of this, can build your workforce management, workflow management, your business process management modules, because this is where you make the magic happen, you make the changes happen when the business, they need to have the new specifications or new products launched. Build an API layer on top of your legacy systems so you can add your business process management, your workflow management systems on top of this. This is where the magic happens, and you need to have systems where your change cycle time is lower. And this is actually where, when you're looking at the concept of low-code, this is where you'll see, okay, the bottom, the transactional systems, the systems of record, they will still be systems of record. And this has to be completely owned and done by IT. This is where, when you make changes, you have to go through the very specific requirements. You have to make sure that when you apply the changes, everything is triple tested, because you cannot have any mistakes in your transactional systems. On top of that, though, where you're looking at your business processes, your workflow management, your systems of engagement, interacting with your customers and partners, this is where I would recommend you look into the concept of low-code and no-code systems. And you are actually capable of educating and working with the business. So in many cases, they can do the changes to those areas themselves. Of course, as IT, you have to make sure that there is a governance framework around it, and that the connectivity from the low-code systems down to the core system is stable and running. So the business cannot mess up, so to speak. But doing this will actually enable business to do many of the projects that today is done by IT by themselves. And how do you then avoid that everything is go in all directions? Yeah, I already said one of the things, and this is, you have to work on the concept of governance. You have to set up as IT a framework for how do we work with low-code systems within our realm of business. So when you've isolated the core and you put the API on top of that, then it's through this API management, through the microservices that you're offering in this layer, that you allow the low-code systems to contact to the legacy systems. And this is where you have your governance framework. From a business perspective, well, you still have to reach a 2 or 3 year vision. But how do you reach a 2 or 3 year vision of the business if you're running short-term projects? I believe that you still have to do these 1 to 3 months projects, because this is where you get value to the business really, really fast. And it's also where you demonstrate that you are in the right direction. If you have a guiding star, if you have a strong vision saying this is where we have to be in, 5, 6, maybe only 2 years from now, then it's also possible, when you create the small-term projects, to illustrate how will this specific project help us go towards the final vision. And this is important, and you have to write it down. This project, which we are doing maybe in 2 months, it is helping reaching the vision because this and this. This is the scope, these are the objectives of this project, and this is how we will track the benefits. It is very important that you put this up for every project that you do, because then you make sure at the end of the day you are actually achieving the vision of the business. And typically, this is the vision that traditional long-term projects would be aiming at. So if you're having an 18, 24 months IT development project, that would have that vision. You still have the vision. You just break down the path towards the vision into smaller projects so you have faster, tangible deliverables. How does this help mitigating the risks we saw in the beginning? Well, if you are isolating your system into a 2 or 3 speed IT system that we just discussed, then your technical debt will be isolated again, because it will be in the core and you won't be touching the core as much when you have a layer of low-code systems. The capabilities that you may not have in insufficient numbers to do the changes to your core will also be less busy, simply because you will have fewer core changes. The business will be taking care of it. The low-code system will be taking care of it. When you are doing the shorter-term development cycles, when you will bring business closer to the actual deliverables, so you will also remove the us versus them barriers. The shorter development cycle also makes it possible to have one owner with clear benefits, which again helps remove this us versus them. We are working on this together. So I believe when you are starting to think along those lines, you are capable of bringing the business closer to IT, because at the end of the day, we all want to do a good job, right? We all want to deliver something, be a success in our companies, for our companies. Doing this enables the business to work with IT to deliver things faster, so you can demonstrate that the effects, the benefits realization is coming much faster, and you are showing the successes. However, when you're doing all this, there is a concern that I hear a lot from IT professionals. They're saying, but if we are giving business access to do all this, what is our role? Will we not be obsolete? And I would say absolutely not. However, you also have to, as IT professional, understand that the world is changing fast, and IT has to, and digital has to work with this. So I've taken a lot of inspiration in some models made by Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey, where they're looking at the organization's maturity model from an IT or digital perspective. They're saying when they are defining 5 stages that you go through. Stage number 1 is where you're basically an immature digital organization. You have your digital initiatives all over the place and they're not coordinated. Then stage number 2 is actually where you, as digital or IT unit, take everything in from all over the business and control it, centralized, to cost optimize, to make sure that the projects are coordinated, to make sure that you are not creating too much technical debt, to make sure that you're not having any cybersecurity issues. But this is only a stage, because at some point the organization is used to that. And then we will see an organization wanting to do more and more themselves. It is still IT, which is a digital hub or a central hub, but responsibility is being put back into the businesses to an increasing degree. And stage number 4 is actually, I would say, an end stage for low code, because this is where IT initiatives are governed by top management, but it is the business who is actually working on them. Here, you can hear the role of IT is changing significantly, because now the IT is going to be the watchdog, the guardian of the digital initiatives, kind of like we know it from data governance. Now we're also having project governance, IT project governance, but from the business units. The people who traditionally was in the digital hub are now being shifted to the business. So they work very close with business, using the expertise and helping the business getting their goals. And of course, as stage 5 is everything is digital in the companies, which I believe very few companies has reached yet. I'm saying this because it is important, if you are part of an IT department, that you are thinking of this. It is unavoidable, in my opinion. So we will see a shift to the business doing much, much more digital development themselves, but IT cannot not be there. IT has the responsibility to make sure that everything is still aligned, that the technical architecture is sound and strong for future developments. Good luck. Thank you very much for listening.